Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going on a seriously fascinating journey deep inside the human imagination. We are going to unpack a real psychological mystery. What exactly happens when our minds build worlds so complex and so rewarding that we kind of just never want to leave them?
Let's kick things off with a little self-reflection. Be honest, have you ever caught yourself pacing around your room whispering the dialogue of a totally imaginary conversation? Or maybe making facial expressions for an audience that literally only exists in your head? Like finally delivering that absolutely perfect comeback in a shower argument? Well, blurring the lines between reality and our inner worlds is actually a deeply human experience, but the intensity of that experience varies wildly from person to person.
Researchers actually have a brilliant way of describing the extreme end of this. They call it an experience where all sense of time, your environment, and even physical needs are completely lost, replaced entirely by an emotionally rewarding fantasy. But that raises a massive question. What separates a harmless flight of fancy from a hidden consuming addiction?
Section 1. The absorptive daydreaming spectrum.
So, let's map this out, starting right at the baseline. With conventional daydreaming, this is just the everyday experience of your thoughts drifting off. You're doing the dishes, you're riding the bus, waiting in line for coffee. It's spontaneous, it's super brief, and your brain is really just taking a mild, wandering stroll.
But as we move up the spectrum, we hit a really fascinating tier: immersive daydreaming, or ID. Now, this is an incredible and completely non-problematic ability to consciously create and visit complex fictional universes. People with this trait intentionally enter into a flow state of fantasy. It's deeply emotionally rewarding, it's incredibly vivid, but here's the key: they remain entirely in control of when they enter and leave these worlds.
However, there's a critical threshold where we cross over into the pathological, and that is maladaptive daydreaming, or MD. At this stage, the daydreaming completely transforms into a distressing compulsion. It literally begins to hijack a person's life, causing severe functional impairment. We're talking about people spending hours locked in fantasy, completely ignoring their real-world jobs, their studies, and their actual relationships.
So the crucial takeaway here is this: having a fiercely intense imagination is absolutely not a disorder in itself. The presence of elaborate fictional universes in your head? Totally fine. It's literally just the distress, the compulsion, and that total loss of real-world control that makes daydreaming maladaptive.
Section 2. Inside the fantasy worlds.
To figure out what these hidden universes are actually built out of, researchers used a specific tool called the Immersive Daydream Content Questionnaire. And it turns out, our daydreams generally fall into a few highly specific narrative themes. We're talking about rehearsing future conversations, living out sweeping romances, being the center of attention, or maybe being a hero. It even covers exploring sci-fi speculative worlds and, sometimes, engaging in dark fantasies of hostility and vengeance. And the data on this reveals something absolutely fascinating. Maladaptive daydreamers don't just prefer one specific type of daydream. No, they engage with absolutely every single narrative theme at a much higher, much more intense frequency than immersive or conventional daydreamers do. It's like their inner worlds are just operating in overdrive across the board.
Section 3. Addicted to social rewards.
82%. That is a staggering number. Research indicates that 82% of maladaptive daydreams heavily feature themes of relationships or finding love. And this massive number offers us a huge clue about what the brain is actually hunting for when it retreats into these fantasies.
When researchers actually measured the types of social rewards people experience during these daydreams, admiration and pro-social interactions totally dominated the charts for those with maladaptive daydreaming. So what this shows us is that the craving for social validation, specifically that feeling of being admired, respected, and deeply connected to others, is really the primary fuel for these obsessive fantasies.
And the psychological mechanism behind this becomes crystal clear when you look at the correlations. Specific daydreams act as a rapid delivery system for exactly the social validations we might be missing in reality. Think about it. Dreaming of being the center of attention delivers instant admiration. Dreaming of hostility? That delivers a quick hit of control and power. The mind is essentially using fantasy to self-medicate its own social needs.
Section 4. The fragile sense of self.
So how does this connect to our real-world identities? Well, research shows that those struggling with maladaptive daydreaming consistently score higher across 4 distinct vulnerabilities. They lack self-understanding, they experience constantly shifting emotions, they confuse their thoughts with others, and they suffer from feelings of a tenuous existence, which basically means wondering if they even matter at all. All of this points to a highly fragile sense of real-world self, which drives them to escape into a fictional identity where they feel secure.
Now, while we're talking about the self, we absolutely have to debunk a huge myth. There's this common belief out there that spending hours and hours crafting complex inner worlds makes you an objective creative genius in reality. But using AI tools to analyze creative writing samples, researchers found the reality is quite different. Intense daydreaming does not actually translate to greater objective creative writing skills in the real world. The creativity kind of just stays locked inside the fantasy.
Section 5. Validation and future treatments.
But there is good news here. By finally understanding the why behind the fantasy, by recognizing it as a powerful coping mechanism for missing social rewards and a fragile sense of self, the psychological community is moving rapidly away from stigma. They're actually paving the way for effective, targeted therapies that address the root causes of the compulsion, validating it as a treatable mental health condition.
So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. If our minds are powerful enough to build entire universes just to feel loved and admired, what steps can we take right now to make our real-life connections just as rewarding as our dreams? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely take a moment today to reflect on how you use your own imagination out there in the real world.